Welcome to Around the House Northwest, presented by PGE and Oregon Kind of Energy.
Hey guys, welcome back for another edition of Around the House Northwest here on Fox 12 Plus. I'm Eric G. Coming up on today's show, we'll check out some hot new products on the market with our friend Brent Gentling for Bring Your Own Tools, and talk with Jared Griffo about generators now that the windstorm season is here. We'll also stop by Building Materials Resources, and I'll hand out a few helpful tips about insulation and stopping mold before it starts. We'll wrap things up with some tips to winterize your home and save a bunch of money in the long run. Whether you're diving into a DIY project for the first time or you got the contractor game down pat, I've got your back. On this show, I'm all about dishing out tips to ensure your project goes as smoothly as possible. Let's dive into this week's edition of Perform Like a Pro.
Now it's time for Perform Like a Pro, sponsored by The Wall.
All right, guys, today we're going to install some recessed light fixtures, but first let me explain my problem. I've got a low ceiling height here. I can touch it. I'm not that tall, but these fixtures hang down and make the room feel kind of tight. So what we're going to do is going to get rid of this big fixture here, and I'm going to install some can lights down the inside of this. So the first thing we're going to do right here, let's turn the power off and get this thing down off the ceiling and see what we're working with. All right, guys, the first step's always to hit the breaker off so you don't have any power going to this stuff. That way you're working safe. I'm going to take this light fixture down. That's our next step, is to get this thing out of the way so I can get up into the electrical box and see what's going on. Let me get this fixture down first. All right, guys, one little tip, make sure you're holding onto the light fixture. Always have a hand on this, because you don't want to be hanging this from the wire and do more damage if it slips and falls, let alone hurt yourself or the fixture. So I'm going to get this last screw out of here, and then that way I can drop this down and disconnect our wires. All right, guys, the next thing, now that we've got the fixture out of my hands, I'm going to take all this bracketry out of here that was holding the light fixture up. This stuff's getting in the way, and when I hang that fixture someplace else, I'm going to need it for that anyway. So we're just going to take these out of the ceiling box, and I'm going to get this ceiling box is actually going to go out of here, so I'm going to break that apart and remove it. All right, guys, let's get this busted out of here. I'm going to see this is nailed up in here. So I'm going to get up here and break this thing out. All right, so now the thing is here with this, we have to figure out where our joists go, and that's what's holding up this drywall here, is that ceiling structure. In this case, they're running this way, which is great because I want to have some light fixtures down through this. So what we're going to do here is we're actually going to just patch this hole later. But now I can move this wire back this way and put a light in here and daisy chain those down through here, so we have great light for this entire space. So the next thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna lay out where these lights are gonna go, and we'll drill some holes, and that way we can start wiring these things out. All right, guys, the next step here is I've got that box out of the way, so I've got a center point here that I'm gonna work with, and I'm gonna put a light here. Where this box was, that's just gonna be a drywall patch. I'm gonna fix that later. So my first hole is going to be here. So I've measured off of this 3 feet. Now, one tip when you're talking lighting, this is really key, is you got to think of lighting when it comes to can lights like cones. So the higher the ceiling height, the more space you can get. Every foot that it comes down, that cone gets about a foot wider. So I'm going to go out here about 3 feet, so I've got some good coverage here. All right, so we're good. I have my center mark there. It's time to drill a hole. Now here's one thing. I already know what's up here. This is a bedroom. It's not a bathroom. I don't have any electrical or plumbing or HVAC or gas lines or anything up there. Always know what's in there before you make that hole, because surprises can be pretty ugly when you find something that you don't want to find. So let's get the safety glasses on. Now these are little tiny can lights, and so my secret is not going to sit here and trace out a hole. I just go out and find the right hole saw for the exact dimension. On this light, it's 2 5/8. I got the right hole. So now I can come up here. There we go. And there's our first hole for the can light. Now I'm gonna get the other one drilled, and more importantly, we can start getting some wire and some lights up here. We're on the home stretch. All right, guys, time to wire this up. Always make sure you're using the right size wire. Follow local building code where it's applicable. I'm giving myself plenty to work with right here. I'm gonna strip this down and get these things pre-wired up because it's so much easier if I can get this wired up from here and do it while I'm standing on the ground versus on a ladder over my head. So get this Romex cleaned up. But what we're gonna do here next is take these knockouts, and that's these little plugs on the end here, so we can make sure and run the wire through here. So these just punch out. I'm gonna just knock those out. Those come out really easy. Now, one secret here is we don't want to run wire right through this because this can cut it. That's against building code as well. So we want to make sure and put these little plugs in here. And we'll get these stripped. These push connectors are really nice. I really do like these for putting lights together because once you can visibly see that they're in there, you don't have to really worry about twist ties coming loose or anything like that. So I can visibly see that that's snapped right in there where it needs to. Do the same with this one. And then our important ground wire. All right, next up I'm gonna feed this back this way so we can get into the next light over here. All right, let's fish this up in here. Now this is what's really cool about this is I'm gonna fish this down to the next hole. This is why these are so great for remodeling is that I can sit here and feed this down. I can hear it going down there, but this will fit up through this hole, just barely. Slide up into here, and then I can slide this up and use these two little tangs right here. Slide that up like that. Now, I just gotta move over to the next hole, get that one wired up. We're almost there. Now here's the cool thing with this. With LEDs, I could put 8 or 10 of these on here because they're so energy efficient and they don't put out any heat. It's a really good way to add light to a room like this. Last thing I need to do right now, besides patch that hole, which is gonna be done on a later date, I'm gonna go turn the power on and see how these things look. I'm curious to see how this changes inside this space. Let's hit the power. You know guys, it's really this simple. Now I've added light to the room and I got rid of this big fixture that was hanging down and it makes the space feel so much bigger. It's a project you can tackle, but if it doesn't meet your expectations, you're like, this is way too much, hire the electrician and get the pro to do it for you. But you know something, I got about $100 into this and it's a great project you can do.